Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 5 of Monday Night Mic'd. I am your host, John Quinn, and we have a jam-packed show for you tonight. As you saw on social media, today we did sign our newest Sea Dog out of Fredericton, Peter Reynolds. We will have an interview with him coming up later on this evening. But first, I would like to introduce, and I had to write all this down because there's so much of it. He's the third all-time in games played. He's the franchise leader in penalty minutes. I'm sure he's more proud of one of those than the other. He's the captain of the 2011 Memorial Cup champion St. John Sea Dogs and a Sea Dog Hall of Famer. Please welcome to the show for the very first time, Mike Thomas. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, John.
No problem. My pleasure. Mike, my first question, we got to catch up a little bit here before we went live, but what have you been doing to keep busy? How have you been? And what's the kind of pandemic been for you?
I think I got Netflix covered. I've been taking the dog for
Reached
lots
the
of
end
walks.
of Netflix, okay, yeah.
Yeah, got that. And I'm teaching one online course right now through Fredericton High School where I was teaching. So that's been a learning curve for sure, getting the program set up online and students. So I think I've been busy, but I'm very fortunate in the position I'm at.
For sure, for sure. Now, getting into your kind of Sea Dogs history, and you joked before we got started here that you were like, geez, I had to go back and look at some of the stuff. It's been 10 or 15 years. And for me, it's always hard because I wasn't a part of the team at the time. So I'm going by, memory. And okay, obviously I know they won the Memorial Cup, but I wasn't there for, some of the bigger moments leading up to that. But I want to go back to being drafted to St. John. Where was the draft that year? And what do you kind of remember about that experience?
Well, I believe the draft is in PEI. So how it used to work, I don't know if it still works that way, but for an underage, you had to get drafted in the first 5 rounds in order to go to the team. So I was kind of on the bubble, so I didn't know if I was going to get drafted. And so I didn't go to the draft. So I was actually working a summer job at Kingswood Golf Course, and I got the call when I was working. So I went 56 overall, just underneath the wire. So in the 4th round. So I was very fortunate and really happy to hear that call. And going to St. John, obviously so close to home, couldn't have been happier.
Did you have any regrets there that you didn't go to the draft once you found out that?
No, I think things worked out pretty well for how they did.
That's fair. That's fair. So you joined a team that was only in their second year as a franchise. What do you remember about those early years and those that first season?
Try not to remember too much. No, the first training camp. I mean, I'm going there. I'm 15. I'm scared. I'm very nervous. Haven't been away from home. Like I like being home with my parents, my brother. But it was phenomenal. Just to get myself out of the shell. And once you get on the ice, I mean, nothing else matters once you're on the ice. Everyone speaks the same language. It's the same game wherever it is in the world. So I was very fortunate that what I did on the ice and fitness maybe I think had a big part of me making that team the first year. It all worked out.
Now, I had a clip that I launched on social media here this week of your Hall of Fame induction ceremony. We were on stage with a few of your teammates from the past, and Ryan Sparling, you just mentioned showing up to camp and being a little bit nervous, but Ryan Sparling had a really good story. So I just want to show that short clip. Anyone hasn't seen it? It's only about a minute long, but check it out. Here's Ryan Sparling at the Hall of Fame induction for Mike Thomas, telling a story of his first time meeting Mike Thomas.
When I think back, I don't know, I can't really say a lot of things, but when Thomas said we had to say things, I was thinking about the first time I was ever introduced to Thomas, and I couldn't think of the actual time I met him and shook my hand, but I remember our first ever training camp, I knew Thomas, I think you were our 4th rounder, but I didn't have a face to him. And I remember back in camps back then, there was a lot more, I guess, fights and like greasier stuff going on. But I mean, I remember the first game, and I used to get fired up in camps when like people that weren't going to be there were like taking runs at you, and I get ran at like 3 times by this kid, and I'm like, who the is this guy? So then like the first period goes over, and like my coach yells at me, don't you fight him. And I was like, who is this guy? So then I remember being tape my stick after, and our captain at the time, Charles Bergeron, came over. He's like, you got to calm down. I was like, why? Who's that kid? Go line this fight up. He goes, he's 16. I was like, what? And then after meeting him and having him on my team, thank God I never fought him.
Great clip and a great night that we had here in St. John. But funny that Sparling kind of mentioned that, like coming in as a 16-year-old and right off the bat you're in camp, and obviously a bit of a different era, but still the same sport, and you're rearing to go, and you're not really fearful of anyone. But can you talk about that first season? And obviously you played a very physical role, and fighting was part of your style. But were there any kind of welcome to the league moments that you had in that first season?
Um, I guess that first season was just kind of an eye opener. I mean, going from midget AAA in Fredericton, they prepared me as well as they could, and they do an excellent job here with their program. But just hockey every single day, and that's your life when you get to major junior hockey. And I guess that was just the eye opener, being away from home, obviously. But looking back, I mean, at those times, I just had to do what got me there. So that was just being physical, hitting. I remember that first training camp, I was just out there hitting everything I could. Doesn't matter, didn't matter how old you were, where you came from. So I was just trying to play my game, stick with it, and see what happened. And I just tried to continue that trend throughout the season. And just when I had the opportunity to play, because that first season I was scratched many times, which was all part of the development, part of the process in major junior hockey. So yeah, so I just played my game, and as a team standpoint, I mean that was quite the struggle. That first, my first year, the second year in the league, and St. John's, Newfoundland made playoffs above us, and we came in the league at the same time. So it's 2 years in a row without making playoffs. I mean, we're not giving the fans in the city much to hope for with opening up like that, but things straightened out.
They straightened out indeed, and a large part of that was thanks to you. But I did a little bit of deep digging here on your stats, and obviously a lot of a couple of the questions here are about fighting and being an enforcer, and that's what kind of endears you to fans and makes you a fan favorite when they see that passion and you're kind of willing to do anything for the team. But you were also a bit of a point guy at times. That I went back to see when you're I use the term loosely, okay. I went back and checked out your very first goal. Do you remember your first goal in the queue?
Oh, it was in Quebec, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
I don't know if I just banged it in, but I still have that puck, and there was a lot of fans there. I remember that. Yeah.
Just a quick stat line on that game. It was a 10-2 loss to Quebec.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And do you know who had the other goal in that game? It was Brett Gallant. It was Brett Gallant. Is the so the two of you fought the puck into the net that night. So a good performance from the Sea Dogs in Quebec.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen if you depend on people like me and Brett Gallant to score. Then that might be the case, right?
That's why we surrounded everyone with a full team, lots of talent. So in your role as a physical player, and Sparling talked about doing that at camp. Your kind of style was being physical, a hitter and a fighter. Those aren't really skills you can practice necessarily, with your teammates. Not a lot of teammates are just going to drop the gloves with you in a practice, and I doubt the coach really wants to see that. And you're not going to hit a guy, hard into the corner in practice when it's your teammate. How do you practice that? How do you hone those skills?
I guess from when checking first came in, when I was in Pee-wee AAA, getting to that level, it was just kind of something that I did, that I enjoy doing. I mean, it's pretty easy. You just skate, and then you glide, and then you hit someone. It was pretty easy, and that is kind of what I molded my game around, so it worked well for me. And then the fighting, I'd say, definitely came later. I think I got in maybe one or two my 16-year-old year, but 17 picked up, and my 18-year-old year it really picked up. So just from the hitting, I found that's where I made my presence, and then the fighting came after that. So I obviously had to stand up for myself and my teammates. So.
And you mentioned some bad years in St. John, but the good years did start to come, and a large part of that was Gerard Gallant and Mike Kelly coming in and kind of taking over the helm. What differences did you see when they came into the organization? And obviously it was a completely kind of different team at that point than when you started, but what sort of impact did those two guys have on your game specifically?
For me, I mean, those two are, I don't need to say how good of coaches they are, because I think we already know that, but just as people, I mean, those are two coaches that they saw you as a person, right? And they wanted you to succeed as a person, and you would do anything for them. Whatever they said, you just bought into, and you thought it would help you win. And it's a long time ago, I was talking to Stacey Smallman, Spencer's father, and he had the opportunity to play under Turk one of his first years coaching in Summerside PEI, and he told me, because we were talking about Turk and kind of leadership he has and the influence he has on us as players, and he said whatever Turk said, you just wanted to do because you thought it helped the team win. And he said, if the Zamboni's out there at intermission, he told you to go out there and hit the Zamboni and skate around the ice, you just would do it because that's what you needed to do to help the team win. So I think there was just such a trust between players and coaches at that time, and at least for myself, and I see it in the with the other guys as well, that we just trusted each other. And so you just wanted to work hard for them every day. You didn't want to let them down. You didn't want to let yourself and your teammates down. So that's kind of what they brought into the organization. And I feel that that's stayed there.
Now, obviously, what they brought to the organization and everyone else kind of culminated into that magical run in 2011. As far as I could tell, comparing the two rosters today, I was taking a look at it. You were, I think, the only player from your first year in the league who was then still on the team in 2011. I don't think, was there anyone there from your rookie season who was still on that Memorial Cup team?
No, there wasn't. Not my first year. There was, I think, Michael Kirkpatrick came in the following year of 17. He played from 17 to
Right,
20.
right. So yeah. What did that mean? I always think it's special that there's 5-year junior players, right? And that 5th year you get to come back as your 20-year, knowing it's your last year. What did that mean to come in your 20-year-old year? You'd been there through like a pretty awful team right there to something special. What did that mean to be in your 20-year-old season in your last year, kind of going for it?
Yeah, it meant everything, especially going in my 20-year-old season. We knew the team we had. We knew we were ready to do it. And we had all the right pieces. So it was just showing up and playing. And I don't want to say it all began my 20-year year, but just some stuff that comes back to me, the memories. I mean, the year before, when we had Hoffman, Peterson as 20s, we lost to Moncton in the finals. And that was just gut-wrenching. And you look around the room and you feel bad because you kind of let your teammates down and the guys moving on. They're never going to get another shot at it. So I still remember sitting in that visitor locker room and just how everything was just down, and you could hear a pin drop. And then from that moment on, I don't know what happened in the summer with everyone, but everyone came back ready to go, got their rest, proper training. And it was a different mindset, that training camp, compared to other training camps. I mean, we were there with the goal right from the get-go of training camp, and we wanted to carry it out throughout the whole season. And Mike and Turk were definitely our leaders in facilitating that for us.
Now, I recall that whenever people kind of talk about that team, like, oh, okay, 2012 was the kind of go-forward year, and no one really expected that 2011 was going to be that Memorial Cup season. But it sounds like you guys really had that idea that following the loss in 2010, that 2011 was your year. And I mean, for you, that was the go-forward year because it's your last year. Did you guys get that sense that as soon as you showed up, like, this is our year, this is our shot?
Yeah, I mean, you don't show up and be like, okay, we're going to win it. But in the back of our minds, I think that everyone just wanted it enough that everyone was willing to put the work in. And that's what happens. I mean, it's such a process. And every day you're working out just to get to the end and play your last game and win your last game. And everyone followed through and put the work in that was necessary.
And are there any moments from, obviously it's a very long season to go through those playoffs and then the Memorial Cup. It's an emotional time, a ton of memories with the guys on and off the ice. But were there any moments or specific games that kind of stick out to you, other than obviously the championship game?
Yeah, I mean, I know we beat Gatineau in the finals. The series was 4-2, and Beauregard scored in overtime. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Hey, you were there. I wasn't.
Yeah, but we could have won on home ice, and yeah, I'm just thinking, and yeah, it was tough. We could have won on home ice, and then we got pushed to Game 6. We were up there for Game 6, and that series was tough. Lots of games went to a few games went to overtime, maybe second overtime, and Beauregard scored that goal, and yeah, it was something else. And I remember after winning the cup in Gatineau, we as a team, Zach Phillips and Steve Anthony were not on the trip, for injury reasons. So we had their jerseys on the ice in Gatineau. And then Jason Cameron from PEI, he was in the hospital actually in Gatineau. I don't know what exactly he had going on, but we wheeled in with the cup, saw him. He kind of wheeled out with a wheelchair, and he was all good. So it was an interesting way to win. I mean, we didn't have the party or everything set up because we were supposed to have that set up at home, but we didn't win, right? So
Right.
we're focused on the game in hand, and everything fell in place.
Now you mentioned Zach Phillips there. He was in the chat and he just mentioned, "Hey Mike, huge fan." So just so you know, he's still a fan even to this day. Now, going on to the Memorial Cup, there's that iconic photo I always see and I always use when I'm creating things of you hoisting the cup. What is that surreal moment like when it's that it's done and this is the last junior game you're going to play and it ended in the fairy tale manner that you wanted it to, like all your dreams had come true, to that point. What is that feeling as you're standing there with David Branch in the cup?
Oh, it's just everything. I mean, I can remember the bagpipes playing, the ceremony, the cup coming out. I don't know, just wheeling up center ice, grabbing the cup, and just for everyone that's been a part of the organization from my 5th year, which is the 6th year that the organization was in the league. I mean, everyone worked towards that cup, right? Everyone made someone else better. We learned from mistakes. So as an organization, I mean, everyone had some input in winning that cup, and just the feeling of just enjoying it with the guys in that group. Obviously, every team that wins a cup is a special group, and I'm fortunate to say that I'm part of that group. And it's something really special, and it's nice to always chat with the guys about old times and see each other every alumni summer. Unfortunately, this summer is going to be a little bit different, but I've had the opportunity to talk to a few guys that were part of that, and it's something that we all look forward to.
Yeah, and it seemed during your Hall of Fame induction last year, you mentioned kind of the relationships you build with guys, and you seem to have a lot of close friends that came back to support you, guys you had played with. Can you talk a little bit about those relationships? I know, like Stephen Anthony, especially, you stood for his wedding, and kind of he had mentioned he hadn't seen you in a few years, but it's right like it's day one, the second you guys get back together.
Yeah, nothing changes. I mean, I didn't see, I call him Tony, for 2, 3, 4 years, I want to say, and then I get the call, and yes, 100% I'll be in your wedding. And he was my roommate on the road for 4 years, so we definitely know a lot about each other and are really good friends. And Ryan Sparling, I mean, he was there since day one, and the passion that he shows for the organization, the team, is just can't compare that to anything. And I feel like that he shared that with me and the rest of the group, and then we kind of carried that forward through my years. So every person that I've played with has had an impact on me, and it's helped me become a better player. And yeah.
Now, one of the other iconic photos I always see is the one of you coming down King Street. You're in the truck, and you got the Memorial Cup with you. You look a little more tired than you did during the Memorial Cup on ice photo, and you don't have the beard anymore. But can you talk a little bit about that day and that celebration and the parade on King Street? And
yeah, I think was it me and Steve Anthony were sitting in the back of Chrysler Sebring, I think, with a convertible. So we're sitting on the back with the Mem Cup, and then the boys are in the front with the fire truck with the President's Cup. And I was not expecting the support. Obviously, the city of St. John really supported our team, and it was just astonishing the amount of people that were out, and no one could expect that. They said they had over 10,000 fans lined up, and
wow.
Yeah, I have that picture, and it gives me goosebumps to go back and look at it, to be honest. Yeah.
So after the kind of high of the Memorial Cup, obviously your junior career is done. There's not a lot of waiting and guessing around that, but you kind of bounced around a little bit. You had some chances in the AHL, the East Coast League. Talk to me about that kind of that period following the Memorial Cup and that high, and then trying to kind of find your way.
Yeah, I played on 4 different teams in 1 year, so that's a little bit different than playing on one team for 5 years. But that experience, it was something beneficial for, I don't know, my career, but me as a person. I mean, at 21 years old, playing on 4 different teams, traveling through the states and places you haven't been. It just shows you what hockey can bring to people. Brings the friendships, brings the relationships, but it also gives you an opportunity to travel, see different places, play in front of different fans, and yeah, that was something. So I signed with Springfield, Massachusetts, part of Columbus's organization, and I was with Columbus uh, until the first cuts. Then I was sent down to Springfield, where I actually signed my contract. So played there, and throughout that time, I got sent down for a weekend to Chicago, played a weekend there, called back up to Springfield, and then I got a call saying I was traded. So then got on a plane, flew to Grand Rapids, played 8-10 games, I believe, and then I flew back to Boston, drove my car back to Grand Rapids, played a few more games, got sent down to Toledo, Ohio, played 2 months in Toledo, and then got called back up to Grand Rapids at the end of the season, finished up the season there. So there's a lot to follow, but I'm very fortunate that happened to me. But yeah, it was a good opportunity to see different places and play in front of different people and meet lots of teammates throughout that.
Now and then kind of came the second stage of your career, I want to call it, where you joined UNB and played for the men's hockey team there. And that kind of was almost like your second Sea Dogs. It was, you know, you're with the same team for a few years. It's a championship team. It's a New Brunswick team. You're playing in your hometown yet again. What's sort of the difference, and why did you decide that the timing was right and kind of university hockey was the right next step for you?
Yeah, I think it was at that time, I just wanted to make sure I got my education, because for me and my family, both my parents are educators. Education was important, and so playing hockey and then getting to the junior level. I mean, at that time, I was like, I kind of reached my goal. Like, I want to get my education paid for. Then you just keep getting deeper and deeper into things, and yeah, so it was that time where it was time to come back to UMB, and I was fortunate with coaches Gardner McDougall, Rob Henniger, and they're phenomenal. They take such good players in, and they create a team atmosphere out of it. And yeah, so it was kind of similar to St. John, except different age groups and other people have different priorities on their plate, but you're still there to play hockey.
Now, obviously, you mentioned your role was a physical one, and I'm not saying university hockey is not a physical game, but they have a different sort of mindset around fighting, and it's not so much allowed, much more heavily penalized and suspensions and everything else. So, like, you just don't fight as much. Did that kind of not so much worry you, but was that a thought going into that like, okay, my career is a little bit different now. This is kind of a large part of my game. You know, what role am I now going to fill in? Was that part of your thought process?
Yeah, coming back, I had a redshirt, so I had to sit out a full season. So I just trained and skated, and I played senior hockey in New Brunswick and in Newfoundland. But going into that redshirt year, I was just ready to go. Coming from pro, I was in top shape. I felt great. And then finally, when I got the opportunity to play the next season, I found myself in a little bit of trouble with penalties and maybe not helping the team the way I wanted to. And it took me a year or two to kind of figure out how the league works. Every league works a little bit different. So finding out that, okay, maybe I got to hold up a little 100% clean or you'll be penalized. So that was just kind of where my mindset was. But I knew that I still had the skills to play there and to play with those guys. And I was very fortunate to and proud to help that team.
And I think it's a bit of an understatement that you helped that team. I mean, you were part of 2 championships there with UMB. What were kind of the special memories or moments around those 2 national titles?
Oh, again, it just comes back to the guys that you're in the room with every day, the coaches, and it's a little bit different at that level because people have their other priorities with school or whatever pathway they're going to take other than hockey. But at UMB, you show up to the dressing room and it's just like a pro atmosphere. It's just like a junior atmosphere. You're there for a reason. So once you show up to the rink, you're there for a reason. But then when you leave, people go on to take care of their studies, take care of whatever else they may have going on, which is a little bit different than in St. John, where it was hockey 24/7. I found, yes, you go to school, but your main focus is hockey. You moved away from home for hockey. So that would kind of be the differences I see there.
Cool. Now, in your kind of post UNB and Sea Dogs career, you were named the president of the Sea Dogs Alumni Association. What for you is so important, and why is it important for teams to kind of keep in touch with their alumni and engage them?
I think it's just to have that, I don't want to say support system, but have those people around you. I spent 5 years there with these people, and just to leave and not be connected to a team like that would just be devastating to me. So just keeping that opportunity where everyone that has played for St. John is welcome to come back, is invited back, and you get to come back and you get to see people you haven't seen in a while, catch up on memories. It's just it's an important thing for me, and it's an important thing for many of the other alumni. And I was just talking to Kirkpatrick a week ago, and he mentioned, oh, is there going to be alumni this weekend, this summer, or is it going to be moved to next summer? So everyone wants to get back, and that's nice to see. And it all started from, I guess, the quote, once a Sea Dog, always a Sea Dog, that they established, I think, in their beginning. And they've stayed true to that. So it's really nice to see.
And one of the other nice things to see as well is kind of the alumni from different generations and different teams now kind of meshing together as we all get together. And I know that you've kind of had a new friend from a guy who played long after you had left in Sam Dub McFalls, and you guys kind of met at UNB. Can you talk a little bit about that relationship? And now he's playing for UNB?
Yeah, so Dover, after I stopped playing for UNB, I started teaching, and Dover needed a roommate, and at the time I needed a roommate. So without even meeting, we decided to move in together. So it worked out really well, and he had a phenomenal year with UNB. And just speaking with other guys that mutually knew me and him said that we'd get along, and everything worked out really well. And yeah.
Cool. Now, I wanted to touch on your Hall of Fame induction last year. You found out the year before that, so you had to wait a whole year to see who was going to say something embarrassing about you on stage, and and a year to prepare your own speech as well, which I'm sure was the part you were dreading the most. But can you talk about that experience? It's a pretty fun weekend and a really fun night. And I mean, it must be kind of odd to sit there and hear nice things about yourself for 2 hours. But can you just talk about what that means to be inducted into the Hall of Fame?
Oh, it means everything. I mean, just for the organization to recognize players after they've moved on for something like that, it's just tremendous. And for me, the second guy going in, and it was huge. I mean, there's so many good players that I've played with, so many good players that played after me that have went on way beyond where I've played, and for them to recognize me as a person for what I've done with the organization was just, there's no words for it. And just getting back that weekend and just having everyone there and the people that couldn't make it and sent in videos. I mean, it was really heartwarming for sure.
No, it was a super fun night. I do have a couple questions rolling in from ex-teammates here in the chat, so bear with me. Corel Saint Laurent wants to know who had the best fashion style during your time with the Sea Dogs.
He probably wants me to say him.
I think so. I think it was a bit of a leading question.
I will pick another goalie. No offense, Saint. I just remember Corbet. He always had a good fashion sense to him. Always had the long necklaces with the beads going on, and he seemed pretty up to date. It was a little bit out of my realm back then, but
I was going to say, were you much of a fashion guy during your time there?
No, I was more just trying to put some clothes on to get out the door. But no, I could admire that he put some effort into it.
Now, we did have an audience question as well. It was Dan Keenan on Twitter. He was wondering who the craziest Sea Dogs teammate was off the ice. And I'll remind you, it's a PG-13 at best show. So if you want to give your best PG-13 answer to that, the craziest one off the ice.
Crazy. I don't know if crazy is really a word for any of them, but I don't know. I know I'll just say Ryan Sparling right now for how passionate he is, and his emotion definitely led up from off the ice into the dressing room and maybe after. So there's been many games where I still picture and hear him yelling and going off, and it wasn't him getting mad at anyone else. It was just him holding himself accountable and getting mad, and that was his way of getting it out. And it sparked everyone around and kind of kept you on your toes. So I understand where he's coming from with that.
Now, I do want to touch on kind of your post hockey life. I know you're still playing a little bit, but your career now, you finished your degree at UNB and now you're a teacher, correct?
Yeah. I'm teaching at a Fredericton High School. I've been there this is my second year.
Nice.
Kind of there, I guess.
Go Black Cats? Is it Black Cats? Is it
Black Cats? Correct.
Black Cats,
yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, I'm teaching one course online right now, so it's.
And I remember you caught a lot of flack at the Hall of Fame as well because you were trying to pursue to be a yoga instructor as well.
Yes, I got my yoga certification, so I teach yoga at the high school, and I started my own business. But
nice.
Obviously, with the pandemic and the situation things are happening right now, that's going to be put on hold. But hopefully, I can get that up and going and work with some younger players to help them be more prepared on what it takes in their path in hockey.
Very cool. Well, Mike, I do have some lightning round questions lined up for you, but I wanted you to let our fans know who our guest is going to be next week on Monday Night Mike.
So next week, Mike Hoffman will be joining.
It's back-to-back Mikes on Monday Night Mike. We're
Mike and Mike.
Rename it MIKE apostrophe D. Mike Hoffman will be joining us, so looking forward to that. As well, we are having a ton of fun catching up with our alumni, but we do want to catch up as well with our kind of current Sea Dogs. So we do have a small section of the show is going to be devoted to catching up with our current roster players. So next week, Brady Burns is going to be joining us at the end of the show, just after Mike Hoffman, to talk to us about what he's been up to since the season ended, and we'll get to hear from him. So, Mike, if you're ready, it's going to be 10 questions for the lightning round. So, Mike, how the lightning round works, it's 10 questions. The key here is honesty. If you do need to pass on a question, that's totally acceptable. We understand. I will tell you that no one has passed yet. We've had 4 guests go through the lightning round. No one has passed yet, so
no pressure.
Keep that in mind. First 2 are a little trivia questions, but everything after that is a little more open-ended. So I reminded you about your first ever goal in the Q. Do you remember your last goal in the Q?
I do not. That's a no.
That's a no. It was in the President Cup Finals. Game 3 against Gatineau in a 5-0 game. You had the 5th goal. So okay. There you go.
Thanks for the history update here.
You can write that one down. I was hoping it was like Memorial Cup and you'd remember that. Number 2, you're the all-time leader in penalty minutes. Do you remember, give or take, how many there are regular season penalty minutes in your career?
I want to say 300 and some.
Way up.
Way up. I remember the suspensions. I remember all that. Back then they counted, I believe, for half my career. So I know there are probably more penalty minutes there than there should have been.
It's 470. 470. Franchise all-time leader. Second place goes to Brett Gallant. He has 439, but he did it in 157 fewer games than you did. So.
Tough. He was tough. Fun to watch.
Did he kind of take you under his wing at all, and did you learn a bit of the fight game from him?
I learned some stuff. Yeah, I mean, you pick up stuff from everyone. I think back then, Charlie Bergeron was a guy that really took me under his wing. I mean, being the captain, me being one of the youngest guys on the team, and I kind of had to play like him.
Hmm.
And we actually got drafted the exact same number overall. So he got drafted 56
Oh, nice.
overall, and I got drafted. So yeah, I don't know. He was definitely a mentor in my younger years.
Nice. Number 3, who was the underrated hero on that 2011 Memorial Cup championship team? Not necessarily at the Memorial Cup, but just when you think of that team as a whole, who was the?
I'm just gonna say Jacob DeSaris.
Okay.
I don't know if he's underrated because we all know how well he played, especially the season before when he was with the Wheat Kings, he lost in the finals.
Right.
For him to rebound back the next season, come to a brand new team, and then win it. I mean, that's
huge.
That's something special, yeah. So he definitely had the motivation, and he was a phenomenal guy. So.
Number 4, a line brawl happens in a game. Which 2 teammates do you want on either side of you? You got one on each side. Which teammates from your career do you want during
from
the brawl?
My career?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll take Brett Gallant and Ryan Sparling.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had a feeling you would pick those 2. So then my next question, you have to fight both of those 2, which I don't believe you ever did. Correct? You were their teammate for most of the time. I didn't know if there was some overlap in the AHL with Brett, but
no. Yeah, we were just teammates all the time. So
so if
nothing stirred up in practice, so I was lucky.
If you're fighting them both individually, who wins?
I'll say draw. Keep it safe.
Draw, okay.
Is that fair?
Yeah. No, not really.
I'll say the linesman stepped in too early.
Blame the poor linesman. Wow. Typical. Number 6. You're a Fredericton guy, played at UNB. Luna or Jax?
Jax.
Jack, no hesitation. I like that.
I don't know why. That's where I go. Yeah.
Well, they got the Jack Cantic pizza too. It's massive. You have to turn it sideways to get it through the door. Like, how could you not?
Exactly. Yeah.
How can you not do that? We just lost our Luna sponsorship. But number 7, also a Fredericton guy. The Social Club or the Cellar? Cellar, okay.
Yeah, they have excellent wings there. Mm-hmm. You just sit down and relax. It's not too upbeat. So, yeah.
Cellar. I had you pegged for a Social Club guy.
It kind of changed, I think, my era at UNB.
Oh, that's fair, yeah.
The Cellar was a little bit more popular.
You young guys, you'll never understand the Social
Club.
Number 8, and I asked this to Boko as well. What's the best excuse you've either given to someone else or that they've given to you as to why they can't fight? You said like, "Hey, let's go," and they gave you an excuse. I'm like, "No." What's the go-to greatest one you've heard?
The go-to everyone uses is my hand sore,
mm-hmm.
or my coach says no. But you can respect both those if it's honest. So I'll stick with that. Yeah.
Were there any like hilarious ones that had you in stitches or?
No, I don't think so. No, mine was more sporadic and just in the moment rather than set up. There was a few that were set up, but yeah.
Okay. Number 9, we established you're a teacher. Who's the student in your class you've wanted to fight the most?
Well, I can't.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I love all my students. That's how it is, right?
That's the one clip they'll cut out. This will be on the Fredericton High School page tomorrow. No, but this is a teaching one, and again, it's about excuses. What's the best excuse you've been given in class as to why homework wasn't done, why they missed class or something, and you knew it was a lie, you knew the kid was completely lying, but you respected the attempt? Is there an excuse that sticks out?
I don't get too many excuses.
I guess they probably know not to test you.
I shouldn't say I don't have hard deadlines,
mm-hmm.
but I kind of I ask the students when they feel stuff should be due. So we have common ground there, and we kind of pick together. So I haven't ran into that problem too much.
Now students are going to be coming up with all sorts of creative ways.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to change next year.
All right, number 10. We're gonna flip what everyone thinks about Mike Thomas on its head right now. Tough guy, hard player. Number 10. What's the softest thing about Mike Thomas?
Soft.
Like me, if a commercial is sad enough, I'll cry.
Yeah,
I will openly weep. But like for
yeah.
you, it's probably something different.
I don't know if maybe if some people saw me in my yoga mat or meditating, they might think it's soft, uh, but now I know that it's not, and it actually helps a lot of people with their careers. So
There you go.
maybe from an outside person looking in, that might be the softest thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember Simone Dupre as well at the Hall of Fame when we were talking to the kids at development camp, and he was like, the one thing I would tell you is do yoga. He's like, it helps every part
Yes.
of your game so much.
Yeah, and he was really big into it. I mean, he did yoga every morning at the hotel, and we chatted a lot throughout the whole weekend about yoga. So yeah, and that really helped him in life and with his career. And he was happy that he found yoga. So
Nice. Well, Mike, you made it through the gauntlets. I'm going to give you a score of 7 out of 10, which is pretty
that's
good.
fair.
I think you're tied for the lead. It's a 5-way tie right now with Valeno, Huberdeau, Shabbat, and Boko. Um, is there anything else you want to update us on? Anything you got going on? Anything we should know about? Philanthropic excursions? Anything that you want the people out there to know?
Nothing too wild. I mean, but the only thing I do is walk my dog to get out of the house. So nothing too wild is going on right now. Just kind of waiting for things to open up. But yeah,
Sure.
things are pretty calm, and they're good for what it can be right now.
That's very true. They're the best they can be. Well, thank you so much for your generosity with your time, Mike. I hope you had as much fun as I did. It's always good to catch up. And congratulations on your Hall of Fame and recently turning 30. I believe you're officially washed up now. So that's.
I am. You got that right. It's
Hey, I'm
more
right
when I
there.
wake
I'm
up
right
in the
there
morning.
with you. Guys, thank you again to Mike. And as he said, next week we're going to have Mike Hoffman on the show. But do stay tuned. Right now, I do have some clips of Mike, a couple goals, a couple fights. And right after that, we'll get into our interview with Peter Reynolds. So stay tuned after these highlights. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure at this time to welcome the newest member of the St. John Sea Dogs from Fredericton, New Brunswick. Please welcome to the show, Monday Night Mike. It is Peter Reynolds. Peter, welcome to the show and welcome to the St. John Sea Dogs.
Thank you so much, John.
Peter, my first question. Obviously, the news broke early this morning, but you've probably known at least for a couple days, if not a few weeks, that this was your intention. But how does it feel to be a Sea Dog?
It's super exciting. It's been hard to keep it quiet for the past couple of weeks, knowing just how excited myself and my family are. But for it to finally be out and for everybody to know is super exciting, and I can't wait for the season to start.
Especially too, there's not too many distractions right now to kind of keep your mind occupied. And when you have something big news, you're getting asked 10 times a day what's new in your life, and this is probably the first thing you want to tell people. But we appreciated you keeping it a secret until everything was finalized and we could get the word out. You've been a top ranked prospect heading into the Q draft last year. You're ranked third overall. You've been a top player pretty much your entire life. What kind of player are you? If anyone hasn't been following you, the casual Sea Dog fan, fans in New Brunswick, what do we need to know about Peter Reynolds, the player?
I mean, I like to set up my teammates. I'm a offensive threat, hopefully, but I also like to play a 200-foot game, so I'm reliable in the D zone, but I really like to create offense and score goals.
Now, I mentioned you're a talented player and you've played with some other talented players as well. I mean, you're a new member to this team, but you've actually played alongside or at least know a couple of the guys on our team, including other players from Fredericton like Josh Lawrence and Dawson Stairs. And then you had the chance recently at the under 17 championships to play for Team Canada alongside a player that Sea Dog fans know very well in Joshua Waugh. Talk to me about playing with Josh.
I mean, Josh is super talented. Obviously, everybody's watched him play in St. John and know how good he is. And to play with him was super fun. I mean, he's so talented offensively, and hopefully we can get something going this year.
And during your time with Josh at the under-17s, was he doing any recruiting? Maybe telling you about how good he had it in St. John, and maybe you should come play for us.
Yeah, actually, yeah, Josh is a jokester. So pretty much the whole week he was just telling me come to St. John, and we were talking French too, and it was pretty funny. He was just repeating himself every day.
Now, I mentioned earlier from Fredericton, and we have Dawson Stairs and Josh Lawrence from Fredericton. Do you have any experience playing with them growing up, whether it was at summer camps or anything, or on actual teams?
Yeah, I mean, I've played with them my whole life actually. Since Timbits, I've played against and with them, so I know them super well. I train with both of them during the summer, so we're pretty good buddies. And obviously, I played on their same team a couple times in spring hockey and stuff. So I'm super excited to play in the Quebec League with them.
Now, you mentioned the Quebec League. What was kind of part of your decision process in deciding to kind of join the Quebec League and join the Sea Dogs?
I mean, times are so unusual right now. Not normally there's a global pandemic that has everybody at home. So to be back home was super special. I mean, I've been gone for the past 5 years now. To have such a good opportunity to be back close to home was super special for myself and my family. And with no other than the Sea Dogs is just the cherry on top.
The cherry on top, indeed, for both parties. And I mean the whole recruiting process. I mean, didn't exactly start this last month or anything. From the time you were drafted to St. John at the draft last year, did that kind of pique your interest? Obviously, you had made certain decisions at that time, but you have to be keeping a close eye at the draft at that time and seeing where do I go, who picks me. Did that kind of pique your interest at all when it was you heard St. John had drafted you?
Yeah, I was super excited when I saw it was St. John, and obviously my plans last year were to go to British Columbia, but Trevor was in contact with me all the time, pretty much every week, so that was super helpful. And once we kind of decided we wanted to come to St. John, he was super helpful and created so many good opportunities, and I'm super proud that he helped me.
Now, part of that kind of recruitment process, you were here as part of development camp after being drafted. You attended for 48 hours and kind of the limitations that are put on NCAA eligible players. But what was your experience during that development camp? I mean, you're coming in and didn't really know too much, I imagine, about kind of the inner workings of a Q team or the Sea Dog specifically. But that camp is a pretty big eye opener. You're playing along some other top talent, not just from New Brunswick, but kind of across Quebec and the Maritimes and kids who are new to the Sea Dogs, but we also bring in, second year players to kind of to train alongside. What was your impression of that camp?
Yeah, the camp showed just how professional the organization was. The guys they brought in to talk and stuff the first day were just super helpful and super informative. And then on the ice, the drills and stuff, and then the players who are so highly skilled was so fun to finally be in that spot. And now to be with the team is just super exciting.
And your past season, you had quite a good season, I would say. You really sort of seemed to take off after that experience at the U17s, which seems to happen to a lot of players we talk to. They leave for World Juniors, or they represent their country on a kind of larger stage, sorry, and they come back to their regular season and they seem to really excel. Did you find that playing as part of Team Canada really helped your development heading back into the second season with Chilliwack?
Yeah, U17 was a super special experience for myself. So to have that was fun, and it also gives you a level of confidence when you go back. I thought it was super helpful, and also to go back to a team is helpful as well because you're not wondering where you're going to be playing or what you're going to be doing. So that was helpful as well.
And you had a pretty great season in Chilliwack. I believe you led the league for 16-year-old scoring. What were your impressions on your season and your first time kind of playing against players that were 2, 3, 4 years older than you?
Yeah, it's a great league. I mean, there's so many good players, and playing junior first year as a 16-year-old, it's definitely an eye opener coming from midget. The 20-year-olds especially are big guys, and I had a couple of experiences where I knew not to mess with 20-year-olds, so that was tough. But I mean, it's a great experience to play your 16-year-old year, and it's super fun. I mean, it's hockey, so.
Well, fellow Frederick Tony and Mike Thomas will tell you something about messing with 20-year-olds. And he tried to fight Ryan Sparling his first day of camp as a 16-year-old. So, well, Peter, it's been an absolute pleasure. And obviously, this is one step of the whole process, but getting you on the ice is the next step. And fans and everyone in the organization is super excited to have you part of the team. And we can't wait to see what you can do on the ice. Whenever that does happen, fingers crossed that it's sooner than later. But we can't wait to see you in Sea Dogs colors and see you on the ice.
Thank you. I can't wait as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was our newest assignee to the Sea Dogs, Peter Reynolds. That's going to do it for our show tonight. Be sure to join us next week. As you heard earlier, Mike Hoffman, Sea Dog alumni, will be joining us, currently part of the Florida Panthers, plays alongside Jonathan Huberdeau. As well, we're going to be playing a little catch-up with Brady Burns, seeing what he's dealing during this whole quarantine scenario, how he's been keeping busy and his summer is going so far. So tune in next week for a jam-packed show. Thank you again to our guests, Mike Thomas and Peter Reynolds, guys. That's going to do it. We'll see you next week.